All right, I said I would do it, and here it is, the John Hickok solo podcast for Gun Culture Radio. So some of you guys saw that video that I did where I talked about how I was getting a divorce, and I mentioned that I was going to start doing solo podcasts again because I haven't I haven't done a solo podcast in maybe 2 years. I don't know. Maybe you guys can look back and see. I don't remember when the last time I did one was. So I don't even remember how to do it. I don't have a plan. I don't have anything prepared, literally at all whatsoever. But I will say, I'm not going to stop doing the podcast. I think. So here's the plan. You guys have heard me say this a million times. The plan constantly changes, or at least I claim that I'm going to, do something and then it doesn't happen with the podcast. The problem is, of course, you guys know, obviously, if you're listening to this, you know about Hickok 45 and that's my number one priority work-wise and everything. And then I would say, like, when it comes to YouTube, my priorities probably go from, Hickok 45, anything that deals with that, of course, being number one. And then number two being, like, the regular main videos on Hickok 45 and Son, and then the podcast as far as YouTube goes. But, I toyed with I'll be honest, I toyed with the idea of not doing the podcast anymore. I'm going through, sorry if this whole podcast is just all over the place. That's probably just how these are going to be. But, I don't know how else to do it other than just basically just be real with you guys and just talk about stuff as it comes to me. But anyway, so I'm going through a divorce, and it's been very difficult. I can't talk a lot about it. I'll give you a little bit of an insight into it here in a minute. Not a lot. I can't tell you much. I can, but I'm not going to at this point. But because of that, and it's been a very difficult and stressful thing. One of the more stressful things that I've gone through in a very long time. And, especially because it's not just something, like when you're a kid and you're in those, teenage years or young adult years or whatever, you go through these internal battles and stuff, figuring out who you are, what you want to be, and all these different things, Hey, those are difficult times for sure. I had some difficult times during those years of my life, my early 20s, without a doubt. But this is different because it's not just an internal thing. It affects a lot of people's lives, and we got work, and finances are involved, and children are involved, and it's just more of a heavy kind of situation. But I'm older and I'm more equipped to deal with things like that too, so that's the upside. But anyway, but it's been a lot to deal with. And, when you're going through something like this, you sit back and you kind of reassess your life. You think, what are your regrets? What do you want to do differently? What do you want to stop doing? And kind of just taking some time the past several weeks to really do that. And so I haven't really been putting out videos, or I've been still Facebooking some, Instagram occasionally, but as far as like sitting down and making video content, I haven't been doing it, and it's been intentional. I just haven't really wanted to think about it. I've just been trying to just to be selfish lately and just think about me and what I need to be doing, and kind of taking it easy, to make sure that I properly deal with the situation. Of course, it's it's an emotional time for sure. And back to what I was originally talking about with the podcast, I thought maybe that's something I need to cut, because from a financial perspective, it's, doesn't really bring in anything. It takes a lot of time. It's bulky. I've got this big elaborate setup. It's costs a lot more money and time than it's ever paid back for sure. But I thought about it. I just need to cut it. I can use that time better doing other things. But then I don't know, I kind of went back and forth and thought about it. I was like, it's kind of what brought me into, being in front of the camera, even though it's a microphone. Of course, I started filming the shows pretty early on. Of course, I'm not filming this one. Can you tell? So it's sort of what brung me in a sense of like my stepping out behind, from behind just my role with Hickok 45 and being out there and actually putting my own opinions out there unfiltered, instead of through Dad and everything. But what was I going to say? I just drew a blank. This is going to happen a lot. Trust me. But I decided that, the podcast was good for me. It's how, that's what I was trying to say. It's how I managed to kind of break through and, have the courage to do videos and, and talk on camera and all that kind of stuff. Because sitting down for an hour or two or three and just talking, I don't know, it just kind of made me more comfortable, made me less, because you guys that have never done this kind of video stuff before, it's easy to get self-conscious about what you're saying or how you're saying it and the way you're coming across and all that kind of stuff. And really, you just gotta not think about that, and you just gotta be yourself. That's what, if you're gonna think about anything, just think about being yourself. Unless you're gonna do a character or something, but just if you're not doing that, just be yourself. And then over time, if you're being genuine, then people will eventually figure out who you are and what you're about. At least the people that want to. So the podcast sort of taught me all that. And if it wasn't for the podcast, then I wouldn't have been able to do the videos and all those kinds of things. So I hate to kind of abandon it for that reason. And also, I think I was putting too much pressure on the podcast and all these like grandiose ideas. I set up this big elaborate studio and these cameras and this video switcher and a live stream, all this crazy stuff. And, it was kind of overkill in a lot of ways. And it kind of made me, not get excited about doing it because it was so much work and it wasn't feeding anything back to me financially, really. So I thought, the podcast is good. The bad part about the podcast is not the podcast itself. It was the way I was doing it. So basically I decided I'm going to keep the podcast, but I'm not going to put a lot of pressure on myself to always do those like live streams and all that stuff the way that I was doing it before. I'm just going to do a lot of them like this, and I'm going to try to do as many episodes as I had always planned. I wanted to do like 6 a week was kind of like the goal, something like that, or more even, but at least once a week. But you guys know I'd have really hard time keeping to that schedule. But if I can get comfortable with just doing them like this more, and some of you guys may hate this format of me just talking by myself with no guests, no Derek laughing in the background or anything. I could maybe like pipe some laughter, some Derek laughter in or something occasionally, whenever I think I'd said something funny. But you may not like it, but I think this is at least for me, this is the best way for me to be able to keep the podcast going and stay excited about it, enthusiastic about it and everything. And I'll still have guests on and, may still do live streams and things like that, but it'll just kind of just sort of depend on I was checking to make sure that this is recording. I just had one of those moments like, but when it makes sense, I'll do the full production and everything. And actually text Derek earlier, and just literally like right before I started this, I heard back from him, and we're going to try to get together soon and do another podcast. But just my life has been kind of crazy lately. Oh yeah, and I was going to say too, I have a podcast that I recorded with Derek. So if you guys have checked out the John Hickok channel yet, it's the one that I'm doing where I'm just doing just whatever basically, and it's not clean. I cuss over there and all kinds of stuff like that. We did an After Dark episode. Well, that was on the tail end or after a podcast. So we recorded a regular podcast, and one thing that kind of added to the doom of the podcast here lately was my laptop got hacked. The thing that I was using to It sounds like you guys don't know what a computer is. Laptop. It's just like this thing that you use to access this global network they call the internet. It got hacked, and I tried to log in, and it was like I kept putting in my password over and over, and it wouldn't take it. It's like, what? This is like a really simple password. Like, I know I didn't get it wrong, and then I realized the language had been changed for some reason. I was like, that's weird. So I changed it back, put the password in, got in fine, but then like everything was weird. Like everything seemed like screwed up. It didn't seem right or something. I was like, I don't know. So I restarted it, and then the language was default again to like some, I don't know, somewhere in the Middle East or something. And I was like, oh. So I just like put it down. I was like, okay, I don't want to take a chance of something bleeding over into my other stuff. So I got to get that figured out, take it to Best Buy or something, I don't know, or trash and buy a new one before I can do live streams again. So that'll prevent that from happening. But I will get that back together at some point. And again, I feel like I was going somewhere with that story. Oh yeah. Now I remember. I'm getting better at remembering what I forgot. I'm getting pretty good at that. I was talking about the podcast that I did with Derek that I have not released yet. I'm going to release it at some point after you've seen this, of course, unless you didn't watch this for several days and you saw the other one. But it's going to be up if it's not up already. And that podcast was recorded literally probably, well, let's see. Was it it was like the day of or the day after. And I think it was the day of when all this happened, with what eventually led to what is now my divorce in progress. And I'll tell you guys kind of, I got to be careful, but I'll tell you guys sort of what happened because there's been people speculating all kinds of things like, did she cheat on me? Did I cheat on her? Or, whatever. Did she just leave? Or what, all these different things. So I'll give you guys kind of there's a lot else going on that's way more complicated. But as far as like what started it all, I'd kind of been for a long time not the happiest person with just the concept of marriage. I sort of had to be a little talked into it in the first place, and you guys out there know, probably a lot of you know what I'm talking about. It's just, there's so much cultural programming, I feel like, and momentum behind pushing you to marriage, and then on top of that, which usually the women who initiate it and everything, and they sort of put you in this position where you feel like, if you want to move forward with this relationship, you sort of have to, and that's sort of how it happened. And, to a certain extent, and I'm not, putting any blame, off of me on that, of course. But ultimately I'm the one that decided to do it. So, I was never thrilled about the concept totally. But at times it was cool. I've never been a guy that consider myself a player or whatever, where it's like dating different women all the time. I've never been like that. It's nice to have someone that's sort of, steady or whatever that you come home to or whatever. That's cool. But marriage puts a lot of pressure, on things. Just I don't know. Something about that contract just makes it more, I don't know, intense, and not necessarily in a good way. It feels less mutual. I don't know. But we've been married for about 2.5 years, and I don't know, just especially here recently. Of course, we had our son a little over a year ago, last August, and and that was a very exciting time and everything. But I was excited to be a dad, and he's great. I love him and everything. But that put some pressure on it, of course. And there was already some stuff there that wasn't great, and that added some pressure to it. And also, like, the difference in my lifestyle, made things kind of difficult, because of just the nature of my job and the freedom that I have with my work and different things that I'm doing, that bumped up right against, a very typical domestic kind of life going on. I thought I could kind of juggle being, what I am, and also like having a kind of a normal domestic sort of life, and I was sort of kidding myself with that. It was sort of unraveling, at least in my head, and I was having a hard time with that. And then you fast forward to a month or so ago, and I met someone that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. And again, I didn't cheat on her. I've always said, every relationship I've ever been in, I'm not ever going to cheat, because that's just, it's not wrong to have, to want to have sex with other women or whatever. Of course, it's not wrong. It's natural. But, when you get into a relationship and if you decide that you're not going to do that, I say be a man of your word. It doesn't matter whether it's technically wrong or not. If you say you're not going to do something and it's a part of an agreement you have with another person, then you don't do it. That's the way I look at it. So I always said I would never do it, no matter what the situation was. But if I felt a strong enough pull towards something like that, then it means I'm not happy with this arrangement anymore, and I would just act accordingly. I would say, hey, I can't do this anymore, basically. And that's sort of how it happened, not totally. I just sort of met someone in a casual situation. Nothing happened or anything. It was just like totally innocent. And then afterwards, a day or so later, we sort of, texted a little bit, and then it was just kind of like, I don't know, I just sort of realized, like, I don't think I can do this anymore, and it was really the straw that broke the camel's back, even though I knew that there's probably nothing that was going to happen with this, but I was like, I just can't do this anymore. This pull of something new is way too strong. And I just don't feel comfortable with being, married or being tied down in a monogamous relationship anymore, at least at this point, and I came to her about it, understanding that she would be upset, as anyone would, but well, here's the thing. So it was difficult to find the right time to tell her about it, because I knew I was going to, because I'm that kind of person. I was going to tell her. I wasn't going to keep this going very long. It was only a few days, and I was trying to find the right time, but it's like, it was ironically, like, it was one of the best. Everything was going great. We were having fun, laughing and stuff, probably because I was in a better mood than I've been in years. It's probably part of it. So it was like hard to find the right time, and then eventually it was just kind of wearing on me enough, a couple of days later, to where, she could tell something was up. So she was kind of like, what's wrong? And, basically I just came out and told her. I'm not one to like keep secrets, and, she took it kind of hard, of course, as, no surprise there. I tried to be as understanding as I could, but just be like, hey, this is a thing that happened. I don't know, how I'm supposed to think about it, but this is how I feel right now, and from a position of trying to work it out and everything. And, and then she, moved out, or she not moved out, but, she left the house, went to go stay with her parents. And then, we were still trying to kind of work things out and, see what it kind of looked like and everything, and what our options were. And, next thing you know, lawyers get involved and things get nasty. So that's where I'll stop the story. But, I will say that I don't have any regrets, because, I didn't do anything that I feel like goes against my beliefs or my standards about how things should be handled. I feel like I did the right thing. It's not the ideal situation in life, but it is what it is. Things happen, and whatever. I'll get through it, and move on with my life. But it's there's a lot of things, a lot of other elements to that have happened since that part of the story that I told you. Just think about it. Someone is one of the closest people to you in your life, and they decide that they really have it out for you. It's tough to defend against that, because you it's the thing about being in a romantic relationship with someone is you trust them, you put more trust in them than anyone. I don't know if that's, moving forward in my life, I don't know if that's a good idea anymore, but it is what it is. And that's something I'm dealing with, and it's been difficult, but I have no regrets, other than maybe not getting married in the first place. It would have been a good idea, maybe. I don't know. But, at the time, I don't necessarily know that it was the worst decision. But with the information, that's the thing. It's easy to go back and think, like, oh, I should have done this, should have done that. Can't believe I did this. But that's after you know what happened, though. I mean, with the information that you had at the time, sometimes you maybe made the best decision that you could, with the information that you had at the time. It's easy to, what's the term, Monday morning quarterback or whatever your life, but just it's one of those things. So that's what I'm dealing with right now. That's why you haven't been seeing as much out of me lately. And sorry, I had to burp, but it is what it is. And of course, I'll tell you, it's funny when certain sayings are just ridiculously true, like to just an insane point. Like, have you guys heard the saying, when it rains, it pours, meaning that it seems like whenever there's something going on, there's like it's always a bunch of things at one time or something. It's like, God damn, is that true? Sorry if that's too extreme of a cuss word for this podcast, but it is. It's so true. It's insane. I've recognized this so many times in my life that it seems like whenever something is going down, like even when I was working security, you'd have a bunch of nights in a row, nothing would happen, just boring for like a month, and then all of a sudden in one night there'd be like 6 crazy things happen, or something. It's just, I don't know why. It's just a weird fundamental, fact of nature or something. But right in the middle of all this that I'm dealing with, one of the most stressful times in my life, this crazy shooting happens, and now we've got all this gun banning being talked about, and post Sandy Hook level gun control bills coming down, the pipeline, or however you want to call it. And then on top of that, us, defending the NRA, got everybody mad at us, so it's like, I'm just like, I can't win, right now. Which, I'll talk about that a little bit. My take on it is, so now I didn't get the opportunity to read the NRA statement and just, make an assessment of what I thought about it. I didn't get that opportunity. I got a text message from my dad basically informing me that everyone was mad at us because of the post that he made. And so I went and read the post. So I kind of had a skewed idea of it, of everything. But I will say, and, you guys can fault me for this or be mad at me or whatever, but as big of a conspiracy theorist as I am about certain things, and you can say I'm a shill or whatever because we work with the NRA, it's fine, doesn't bother me. But I'm just going to tell you what I think. I do trust the NRA. We wouldn't have worked with them if we didn't both, put faith in the NRA. A lot of times in life, you can never be totally sure about something. You can never be totally sure about anything. But sometimes you're put in a situation where, you got to pick a side, to a certain extent. And it was kind of like that for me with the NRA. I never just loved the NRA because I've always been really hesitant to trust big organizations, being kind of a conspiracy theorist. Get some water. So, I was kind of, I don't know, I never hated the NRA, but I was one of those people that's kind of like, I don't know about this NRA thing. And they're kind of big. It's a little scary. But moving forward, Dad's always been a supporter of the NRA. And going to the different events, we got to know people in the NRA. just because of the success of the YouTube channel and everything. And then I was kind of like, maybe, but, there's really nothing concrete that I've seen that really makes me feel like the NRA is not on our side. I mean, yeah, people cite all these things from the past, like the Hughes Amendment and all this kind of stuff. You also got to realize in 1986, now the NRA represents their members, so that's one thing I would tell people. If you have a complaint with the NRA and you like guns, your best bet is to be a member and then make yourself heard, because they represent their members. If you're not a member, they don't care what you think. At least they, shouldn't have to. But in 1986, right, the Hughes Amendment, right, one of the most frustrating pieces of legislation, because it basically means that you and me, you and I, whatever the proper way is to say it, can't go and buy a machine gun. We can't save up our hard-earned money and go buy a machine gun unless, we're making a lot of money, because they're very, very, very expensive. Even like a piece of junk, Mac 10 is like $5, $6, $7 grand or something. It's like buying a classic car, a machine gun, or more expensive even, depending on what you buy. It's actually now that I think about it, it's a pretty good analogy, really. Classic car, it's about right, because with a classic car that runs, you're looking at somewhere between, on the very low end, $5 or $6 grand, maybe, something that works, that's collectible. And then on the high end, you've got like really nice ones up into, 50,000 or 70,000, whatever. I guess classic cars maybe get more expensive than machine guns, but here's the thing, though. You got to remember, in 1986, nobody even had like AR-15s and stuff, hardly. I mean, some people did. I mean, my dad had one. So I'm not saying no one did. They were around. I mean, there were civilian ARs, going back to the 70s and stuff, maybe even the 60s, but at least the 70s for sure. But the thing is, the average person just didn't own stuff like that back then. So the NRA didn't probably understand at that time. It's easy to look at it from the lens of today, where everybody loves machine guns, and and honestly, a lot of people seem to forget, before YouTube, people's awareness of guns, and I see a lot of people get really big egos about stuff that I know they didn't probably, or a lot of them didn't know about, before YouTube came about. I mean, I remember, because I've been into guns my whole life, of course, and I remember trying to, and a lot of you guys have that are listening to this, but I remember trying to explain to people what this or that was, when I was a kid, and even people that were into guns, people that claim they knew about guns, and I'm trying to explain stuff to them, they didn't understand. And but now it's like everybody's a gun expert because of the internet. Not that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying some people get a little bit, overboard and about that. The 5 year, I got into guns 5 years ago, and now I'm the ultimate gun expert person. But a lot of people didn't know about those kind of things in 1986. This is pre-internet, and also like it was just a different time. It was just a very different time. And now the NRA may have, I don't know, done something malicious, maybe, I don't know, but I haven't seen any evidence of that. And of course, there's things going, even further back that people talk about, and that principle is even more true for that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I still have faith in the NRA at this point. Of course, we work with them with our channels, but if we feel like they don't have our best interests in mind, we're not going to work with them anymore. It's as simple as that. I mean, some guy was, I don't know, on Facebook or something, was making the comment that, oh yeah, just because, they, just because you get stuff from them, you're just going to say whatever about them. I mean, look, and I don't mean this to be like cocky or anything. It's just true. We have one of the largest gun channels on YouTube. The only gun channel that I'm aware of, and I've checked all the ones that I know of because I was just curious about it. And I'm an egomaniac, maybe. I don't know. Who knows? I'm curious. I was curious. We have the only gun channel that I know of that has more overall views than us is FPS Russia. So, we're out there a lot. And if we want to get another supporter of our channel, we can do that. That wouldn't be a big problem. Now, working with someone that we didn't believe in what they were doing, that'd be a big problem for us. Regardless of what other people think about it, just for us personally, it'd be a big problem. Why would we do that? We could go out and get someone else that we do believe in. So we work with the NRA because we believe in the NRA. That's the truth. That's the God honest truth. Now, when it comes to the the statement that they made, again, like I said, I didn't get to read it in the typical situation that most people did. I kind of read it under duress a little bit because of the backlash we were getting that I wasn't aware of until Dad told me about. I was like, watching a movie or something, and get a text message from Dad, and not the scariest text message I ever got from him, that's for sure. I'll never forget the time that I woke up and had a text from Dad, and he was like, "Well, looks like our," it was, it just makes me laugh to think about it because of how messed up it was, but also how I don't want to say over dramatic, but he definitely could have told me in a better way. And he was like, "Well, looks like our worst fears have been realized. The channel's gone." And I was like, all right, this has got to be some kind of overreaction. I'll just go back to sleep and it'll be better when I wake up. And I woke up and, of course it wasn't. Our channel was gone. That was a whole shutdown thing. As long as that's been 2 years now, I guess, or a year and a half. I don't know. But where was I going? Oh man, I got too cocky about how I could always remember. Oh yeah, we were talking about the NRA. So, I got the text from Dad. That's right. See, I remember it again. I was talking about how I was telling that story because I was explaining that I wasn't the worst text that I got from Dad, but it was scary, and I didn't get to read the NRA statement under the right circumstances. So, anyways, on to the NRA statement. I understand how it made some people angry. I was already in defensive mode when I heard about it because people were attacking us for what Dad said about it. So I'll admit to a lot of bias when it comes to my interpretation. But let me. I got the computer in front of me. Let me pull this thing up here. Let's see. Damn it. Let's see. I should have thought ahead on this. NRA. It's funny, everyone's calling it a bump stock now. No one, and it's actually easier to say than bump fire stock. But no one, I never heard anyone call a slide fire or a bump fire stock a bump stock until this happened. And I guess the media sort of created that term. But even gun guys are sort of picking it up. It's funny. All right, I believe this is it. Now, there's one certain part of it, that's why I wanted to pull it up, that made people the most upset. Let's see. Okay, here we go. I think this is it. The NRA believes that devices designed to allow semi-automatic rifles to function like a fully automatic rifles should be subject to additional regulations. Okay. So here, now some of you guys are going to just think this is damn words. What are the words? You guys are going to think I'm pussyfooting around this, but just hear me out. Okay. The NRA believes that devices designed to allow semi-automatic rifles to function like fully automatic rifles should be subject to additional regulations. Now, if you can remember back to when the slide fire stock first came out, there was a lot of talk about this and if it would be legal and all this kind of thing. So now the definition of something being fully automatic is more than one round is fired when one operation of the trigger, something like that, right? So the NRA is saying if it's making a semi-automatic rifle function like a fully automatic rifle, it should be subject to additional regulations. So technically, a bump fire stock does not make a semi-automatic rifle function like a semi-automatic rifle function like a fully automatic rifle. It doesn't, because of the action of the way that it's. You guys know how it works. I don't need to explain it. The way that it operates based on the recoil. So my understanding of this statement was that the NRA was trying to say, basically, like, oh, okay, oh yeah, of course, if this turns a semi-automatic into a fully automatic by official definition, which is what that would have been nice if they added that, made it a little more clear. Then of course it needs to be regulated, just like how machine guns are already regulated. It's kind of their way of sort of being snide to the left and playing off of their ignorance to the situation, and having the ATF look at it. Now, and here's the thing though, if they had gone for the bait, hook, line, and sinker, and be like, oh yeah, yes, of course, hey, look, the NRA's on our side, let's let the ATF look at it, and they'll decide it makes it a semi-automatic rifle into a machine gun, and they'll be illegal automatically. Well, and if the ATF looked at it and they said the same thing that they've always said about them, well, they wouldn't have been satisfied, and then they would have gone ahead with the bill. So I understand people's point about, why did they say it? It's not going to help anything. But I do think, in my own personal opinion, that people have overreacted a little bit when it comes to the NRA statement. They weren't conceding. They weren't giving anything up. They were trying to use a strategy. It would have been better if they probably just left it alone and, waited for the bill to come out. And the thing is, too, people were saying that this statement caused the bill, but they already knew about the bill before this happened. This bill was already in the works long before they made this statement. So it has nothing to do with that. They thought that they could maybe avoid it from happening, keep it from happening. But, yeah, I mean, that probably was a pipe dream. And it would have been better if they just not said anything to that effect. But is the NRA evil and trying to take your bump stocks? No, I don't think so. That's not what I got from it. I think they tried something, and it didn't work. Was it the best idea? I don't know. But I do think that was what they were trying to do. And at the end of the day, we've got to. Here's the thing. I support the NRA. I think it makes sense to join the NRA. And I look at the NRA kind of like the government. If the government, there's a ton of things, right? Just a plethora of things that the government does that makes me incredibly upset. That just atrocious. But you don't see me going to Mexico or Canada. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stick it out. And I'm going to try to hopefully, help do my itty-bitty little part to get things changed. And that's the way I look at the NRA. It's the same thing. The NRA is the biggest voice, and some of you get tired of hearing that, but it's true. And if you want the NRA to change, you got to be a part of the NRA to help them change, because they represent their members. So that's the way I look at it. But with that being said, if you don't want to join the NRA, as long as you like guns and you support the Second Amendment, then that's all I care about with regards to that. Let's not fight over this NRA thing. That's stupid. I mean, we got too many important things to deal with right now. We don't need everybody fighting over the NRA. I mean, people fight over the NRA enough. This is not the time for that. We got to all band together and do our part. Try to take on this, this big bill that's coming through. And there's some other ones too. I've been reading about, this podcast is not about giving the information about all these bills. I haven't, I don't have all that information in front of me. I don't want to go hunting for it right now. But if you want to learn more about those different bills and stuff, go, Such 00 did a really good video on it. Just Google around. It's out there. Do what you can. We're definitely going to make a video about it and everything, and kind of talk about it some. Just to try to use our audience to try to help put a stop to some of this stuff, because it's a little scary, of course. But I think we'll be able to stop it though. As bad as that shooting was, and it was bad. It was really bad. It's hard to. Sandy Hook was atrocious because, especially so. I mean, anytime people are killed senselessly, it's always atrocious. But where it's children, and everything, that makes that one especially bad. But this one in Vegas, it's almost as bad or worse in a way because, of course, more people were killed. But just the way in which it was done and how just some people going to a concert were just, sitting ducks. It turned, a war zone just broke out right in the middle of Las Vegas, I mean, Vegas is like, it's supposed to be a fun place, but I mean, things can happen anywhere. Another thing, too, is that's scary is there wouldn't be much, even if you had your handgun. What are you going to do? The dude's 500 yards away, You'd start taking shots at the building, you're going to hit innocent people, so there's not a lot that can be done in that situation. Some of you may have seen me post about this on Facebook, and this is like one of those food for thought kind of things. This is not a I don't know, a planned out opinion that platform that I'm going to try to push or anything like that. It's just kind of an idea, something to think about, I think. I'll try to explain it the best I can. But so when it comes to stopping something like a mass shooting, there's almost no way to do it. Gun control, even if gun control reduced the frequency of them or the severity, you're talking about stripping people of their rights for that. I mean, that's the guns are a huge right. It's incredibly important. The thing is, mass shootings are kind of like a plane crash. They're an anomaly. They don't happen all the time. They make up an incredibly small amount of deaths in this country annually. It's far, 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 far from anywhere near bad enough to limit people's gun rights, even if it would help. And that's hypothetically saying that it would help, and I don't think that it really would much. Maybe like 5% or something. People can get guns, especially in America. I think it's those kinds of things work a little better in Europe, just because they're smaller countries. Also, they've had strict gun control for a long time. America's big. We've got a lot of guns. It's not going to work. I mean, if you banned guns, like if you had like a hardcore ban on guns where like everything but shotguns and revolvers were illegal, and if you got caught with one, it was like it was like getting caught with an M60 or something. You're looking at like 10 years in prison and all this kind of stuff. If they did that, it would take a long time, and also people would resist to that in a pretty aggressive way. So that's not that I have to convince you guys, but I'm trying to look at this from a more, I don't know, global kind of perspective, like how everyone might see it. But obviously that's impossible to do because I'm one person. So gun control, obviously, is not going to stop anything because they'll figure out a way to get the guns, and it's just, by the time they do something, it's too late. And if they are crazy, some people like to talk about the mentally ill thing, especially on the gun side, because we're trying to take the attention off of guns. Of course, we talk about the mentally ill. That's true. I mean, there's probably some things that could be done when it comes to that. I think pharmaceutical, like psychiatric drugs, definitely need a hard look needs to be taken at those for sure. But still, like, how do you, what is this, Minority Report? I mean, how do you determine whether someone is going to do something crazy on that kind of scale? I mean, I don't care how crazy they seem. If they're schizophrenic, or even if they, are torturing cats and stuff, you still can't, just lock someone up forever indefinitely, because you think they might go murder a bunch of people. I mean, you don't know, you can't convict someone of a crime they haven't committed. So I don't think there's a lot that can be done from that angle. So it kind of got me thinking. And this is a concept that I've kind of thought, played with in my head for a long time. The reason that government intrusion is so disturbing and bothers us so much is because kind of two reasons, two big ones at least. There might be some others. One big one is, well, they're powerful and we don't trust them. We don't want something like Nazi Germany to happen again. If they know too much about us, then they can round us up, put us in camps or whatever. If things get, if they want to, and that's not good. Obviously, not that I have to convince you of that. But and then the second one is there's a lot of really draconian laws out there that are wrong. They're just wrong, and an encroachment on privacy, subjects a lot of good, honest people to consequences that they don't deserve. So, those are kind of two of the big things, and that would be why having an increased amount of security and surveillance and becoming a police state, surveillance state, it would be such a bad thing, such a terrible thing for those two reasons. But that being said, and again, I remind you, this is a hypothetical situation that probably is in a vacuum and would never actually work, but it's just something something to think about. Let's say hypothetically we had a society where it was basically like the libertarian wet dream, where everything was legal. The only crimes that existed were, as long as you're not hurting someone or taking something from them, going against some kind of, binding contract, things like that, then you're fine. You can have all the guns you want, have all the drugs you want. Basically, anything that you want, as long as you don't hurt somebody, then you're fine. You can hurt yourself all day. As long as you don't hurt somebody else, then you got nothing to worry about. So, if we live in a society like that, okay, what do we have to fear from the police? Unless you're a violent person and you're going out and really wanting to hurt people, what do you have to fear from the police? Nothing. If you fear the police in that environment, then you're probably a bad person. Like, seriously, because you want to hurt people or scam people or screw people over. So if there was like this kind of give and take of where people have freedom, but yet we had an increased level of transparency in our society with more security, and there was still, and the thing is, again, I talked about the government can't be trusted, so they can't necessarily let them know everything about us, of course. But if there was a way to have more security, more checks for things, better way to search things easier, whatever, spitballing here basically, then maybe we could have a safer and freer society. But unfortunately, that probably wouldn't really work, like I think, because again, the big problem with that is it's hard to trust the government. And then also, privacy, you sort of need privacy because there's still a lot of judgmental people out there in the world. If humans ever evolved past judgment, or we didn't judge each other for basically anything, we just saw things as very matter of fact, and we didn't look at something and go, oh, that's weird, I'm better than that person because I don't do that weird thing. If we stop doing that, then privacy wouldn't be as important. And who knows, maybe in like there's some kind of advanced society out there in the universe where it's like 100% transparent. The government knows everything. You can just like walk into someone's house and use their bathroom, and as long as you're not bothering them, it's like they don't care or what. I don't know. That'd be kind of interesting. That maybe I should make a movie about that. But I don't know. Just something to think about. Like privacy can be a little bit of a prison at times, but then again, it's also a defense mechanism when you can't trust someone or the government or something like that. So it's a difficult situation. Trying to stop a mass shooting is I don't know. It's almost impossible. It's just like if people get in their head they want to do that. I don't know what we can do to prevent it. But I do know that as individuals, we can at least try to spread a certain level of understanding or positivity in the world. Everybody can always do a better job of doing that. Like the situation I've been going through with my divorce and everything has, of course, made me, very upset. I feel very wronged in the situation, and not like what's happening, not deserved. All those kind of feelings. And it'd be easy for me to be very negative and go out and spread that negativity and push it off onto other people and do those kinds of things. But I'm not doing that. I'm just trying to deal with the negative parts of it on my own. And I vent occasionally, of course, to close friends, but there's a difference between venting and kind of like pushing off your negativity on someone else. Because sometimes venting in a way can, if you're going through something difficult, sometimes venting can be a positive experience for both of you. Because I know, like, my friends, they're complaining to me about something. A lot of times it's funny. They kind of joke about it and have fun with it. So I think it's important to try to always be positive. It doesn't mean that you're walking around acting like a hippie and only thinking pleasant thoughts or whatever. I mean, you can be positive and still be realistic and everything. I mean, I consider myself a pretty positive person, and I listen to heavy metal all the time. Which that's another thing that should have been a clue that something in my life was going to change, because the last time I underwent a big change in my life, I was like hardcore into heavy metal. I mean, big time. And I think I first got into heavy metal when I was in high school, and I was into it then. But then when I was in college and dropped out and stuff, I went through some stuff then and just really fell into it hard. I even got really into the Metallica album that everybody hates, Saint Anger. And here's my thing about that album. People love to talk trash about that album, about Saint Anger. It's the worst album ever, worst Metallica album at least. It's just garbage. It's terrible. If you like it, then you don't know anything about music. Here's the thing. If you like heavy metal, if you listen to that kind of music, and you listen to the album Saint Anger, and it bothers you a lot, it's because you've never been angry enough while you were listening to it. I'm not saying you've never been angry enough in your life to get Saint Anger, but you've never been angry enough while you listen to it. I'm telling you, play that album if you're angry enough, and you're like, all right, that snare makes sense now. I get it. I totally get that snare. And I'm telling you, they don't call it Saint Anger for no reason. But yeah, so anyways, what was I going to say? Yeah, so recently, like in the past several months, I really just gotten back into heavy metal again. I went through this big phase like a couple years ago. Things in my life were kind of calming down, smoothing out. I was mostly listening to like a lot of my old vinyl records and a lot of classic rock and stuff, and Neil Young and America, and stuff like that. And I wasn't like hitting the heavy metal as hard. But here in the past several months, though, I've really been hitting it hard. There's tons of Metallica and Pantera. I got back into Pantera just like in the worst way. I mean, just became a Pantera nut. Like I always liked them. I had one of their. I had Cowboys from Hell. And then I also had one of their greatest hits albums. It had like a couple or three songs on the big songs from each album, and man, I played those so much, several, like back in the day. And but I didn't truly know Pantera, like in the last several months is when I really got into them in a really big way. Now I know like everything about them, just like I did Metallica when I got into them. The early days of YouTube when I was still in college, I was so into Metallica, I would just like watch videos about them, their history, and all that kind of stuff. I'm not that nerdy of a person, but occasionally I'll like really get into something, and I just got to know everything about it, or I'm not satisfied until I do. It's weird. So I sort of did that with Pantera, so I know too much about them. I could do probably a whole podcast on Metallica and Pantera. But I was getting back into heavy metal so hard, man, lately. I should have known something was coming. It's almost like subconsciously I knew some kind of big life change was coming for me. And heavy metal's always been a way that I deal with it. And some people think that heavy metal music is about creating anger, making you angry, but that's not true at all. You might look angry when you're listening to it, but to me, what heavy metal is about is it encompasses anger and aggression, and it takes your anger and aggression that you're already feeling, and it kind of translates it into something that you can understand better. And also you feel like someone understands you too at the same time. Not understands you, maybe is not what I mean, but like understands how you're feeling, if that makes sense. Because like you listen to a great heavy metal song and some great like powerful riff, and you're just like, oh man, that riff, it knows what I'm feeling. You know what I mean? It's like whoever wrote that riff, or Dimebag Darrell, when he wrote that song, like he knew this feeling that I'm feeling right now. He knew it, and this is how he expressed it. And something about it just makes you feel better, So that's one reason I've always liked heavy metal in times of distress, but even not. It's just fun. It's fun. And the thing that sort of got me into heavy metal, ironically, was when I started playing guitar, like, I don't know, 10 so years ago, which I'm not like my ability on guitar does not reflect how long ago I started playing, because I just played it very, very off and on and infrequently throughout that time. But I sort of like gravitated towards, like crunchier, heavier distortion just from like playing guitar, because I just thought it sort of sounded cool. I started out playing like AC/DC stuff, like classic rock stuff, and then my friends sort of got me into heavy metal, and it was off to the races from there. I think the first like real metal song that I ever heard was One by Metallica, and that was sort of my entry point into the heavy metal universe. Haven't been right in the head ever since. All right, how long have I gone here? 57 minutes. I'll be damned. Well, I don't know how long I'll tend to make these solo podcasts, but just like I said, I'm gonna do them. I'm just bullshitting right now. Let's see. Let me talk about. I catch myself doing that sometimes. It's like I'm just saying nonsense right now just to say it. I already told you guys that. There's no point in repeating it. Just trying to keep it real with you guys. Let's see. There was something else I was going to talk about though before I wrap this thing up, and I don't remember what it was, honestly. I can't remember. Oh yeah, music. That's right. I was going to talk about some of the music I've been listening to lately. So I told you I got really hardcore back into Pantera. And I used to think that Cowboys from Hell was my favorite Pantera album, and now that I've really gotten into them and really know their stuff really well, I'm gonna have to say probably Far Beyond Driven. It's just such a metal masterpiece of incredible, powerful riffs. I mean, it's just. I think it's the best album as far as like pure, just in your face Pantera in their prime. Far Beyond Driven is the way to go. With that being said, there's some great stuff on all their other albums. And another thing that's cool too, I mean that block of, was it 5 albums they had? In 90. Because they did a bunch of albums, they're not a bunch, but they did a few albums before Cowboys from Hell that a lot of people don't even know about. Like in '88, they did Power Metal, and now that I talked to this big game, I know everything about them. I don't even remember the names of the albums before power metal, but that they were kind of like more of like a hair metal band back in the early days, because that was the stuff that they were into. But then they kind of, once they got to hearing a lot of Slayer and Metallica and stuff like that, like a lot of people like diss them for that, like, oh, they're phonies, they're fake. No, they're not fake. They just changed their mind. They just used to like that kind of music, and then they evolved the same way that you probably start out listening to whatever you listened to before you got into heavy metal. But power metal is it's okay. It's not Cowboys from Hell, that's for sure. But you can kind of see how they're becoming, the Pantera that but that block of like 5 albums, I think it is. So you've got Cowboys from Hell, Vulgar Display, Far Beyond, and then Trendkill, and then Reinventing the Steel. That's 5, right? So that block there of 5 albums, I mean, that's such a solid chunk of heavy metal right there. And then you can kind of do the same thing with Metallica, I feel like, because you got those 4 albums from the 80s that are so amazing. And the Black Album, some people diss the Black Album. I liked it. I like the Black Album. I think it's great. It's not as super heavy and thrashy as some of their early stuff, but it's great. It's a great heavy metal album, I think. But so you got that block of 5 great albums from both bands, Metallica and Pantera. Those 10 albums are so great, and then Megadeth has a lot of great stuff, but Metallica and Pantera, when it comes to heavy metal, are definitely my favorites by far. I love the riff writing of James Hetfield. It's so good. It's just so good. He writes such good riffs, and of course Dimebag, same thing. I mean, his riffs are so amazing, and he plays great solos too. But those 2 guys are 2 of my favorite guitar players. I like Megadeth, but I don't like them as much as those other 2 bands, because now Dave Mustaine is the man. I mean, if Metallica wouldn't exist without him, he deserves so much more credit than he gets for just thrash metal in general. But as far as actual music, his singing voice, grew on me over time. I didn't like it at first when I first listened to them, but it kind of grew on me, and it's like, okay, it kind of makes sense. I get it. It's sort of like Bob Dylan or something. Yeah, it's like the Bob Dylan of heavy metal. Not necessarily lyric when it comes to lyrics, but not that his are bad. He is a little bit of a snob for me. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he plays more from the brain than he does from the heart and the gut, if that makes sense. Not that he doesn't do those things, but it's just I'm not one of those people. I don't necessarily appreciate like really technical heavy metal stuff, because I don't listen to music to be impressed. That's not why I listen to music. I don't. Okay, I've heard impressive music before, and I'm just like, okay, that's impressive, but I don't care. I don't care that it's impressive. That's not what I get out of music. I want something that really makes you feel a certain way, And Megadeth has songs like that. I'm not saying they don't. They got some great heavy metal songs, a ton of them. But he's just a little bit more of like I don't know. His riffs don't to me, they just don't. A lot of them just don't quite have the power of some of the stuff that Hetfield has done back in the day, and the Dimebag did. And there's exceptions. I mean, I like what's that Megadeth song that, oh man, I can't think of it now. It starts out with that really gnarly bass line. It's like one of my favorite songs of theirs. I'm trying to look it up. I feel like it's like one of their big hits. It was in Bill and Ted. It was in one of those movies. I can't remember what it's called. Let's see. But yeah, I was just gonna say that was an example of one of the songs that I love from them. So like, don't get me wrong, they've got some incredible just guttural, heavy metal stuff. They're great. And Dave Mustaine is an incredibly talented guitar player. I'm just saying they more lean towards the type of heavy metal that I'm not as interested in. I definitely am not interested in, like that speed metal stuff or whatever. It's like, great, you're really good at playing the guitar. I'm impressed, but that's as far as it goes for me. That was the thing that, to me about Dimebag is he had so much soul in his playing, and had that southern feel to it, and everything was really cool. And then James Hetfield just has the raw power and strength, and that's just kind of how I see the two of them. But I was gonna say too, one band that I really got into recently is Down, which is a band that Phil Anselmo, I guess he started it. I don't know a ton about their history or anything. But Down existed during Pantera. I think their first album came out like 1995 or something like that. And that Down is a really good band because it's sort of heavy metal. I guess it's metal. I don't know what you call it, but it's like really soulful, heavy guitars, but also has kind of like a old school, like New Orleans kind of rock theme to it. It's really good. I can't believe I haven't discovered it sooner. But I've really been listening to a lot of Down. Like their first album has just, especially, I kind of discovered it around the time that all this happened with my divorce and everything, and I'd play that thing over and over and over and over and over again. The first album is so good, and the second album is really great too. There's a song on there called "Where I'm Going" or something like that. That's just really cool, because it's a break from the metal. It's kind of like a slower song, but it's really cool. Phil Anselmo, he's got his issues for sure, more than I care to even mention, but there's something special about that guy. He really, he has an incredible amount of presence, and like when you see him like live and stuff, it's just like you can tell that he believes in what he's doing and what he's saying, and I think that's a big part of being an artist or whatever. It's just being real. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm talking out of my ass at this point. Yeah. So this was the first solo podcast for a long time, and I could start doing the album recommendations again. That's because I used to do that on those early ones, and I would actually have the vinyl or whatever. But I could just do albums just in general that I don't have. So I will say that the album recommendation for this one then is definitely, without a doubt, Down. And let's see, the first Down album, I think it's called NOLA, NOLA, I believe is what it's called. And if you're like a rock person at all, I think you would probably like it. Definitely if you like metal, you would like it. But so that's the album of the podcast. I'm not going to say like, oh, all you guys got to go listen to this album now, because I told you I'm not doing anything corny like that. But I could do, but I could just do this, I guess, on the solo podcast, just, because I'm a music guy, and mention an album that I've been into lately. And if you want to listen to it, great. We can talk about it in the comments. If you're listening on YouTube or whatever. But if you don't, that's fine. I'm not gonna be offended if you don't listen to whatever album I'm listening to. Just thought it'd be kind of cool to mention one that I've been into lately. So yeah, again, I'll try to do these when I can. And if you guys hate these, let me know, because I guess there's no point in me doing them if you guys hate them, if everybody hates them. But if enough of you are want to hear these solo podcasts, because this is probably, unfortunately, be the only way that I can keep up any amount of frequency to the podcast. But like I said, I'm still gonna have Derek on and other guests and things, and not gonna make any promises about the podcast for sure. I learned my lesson on that, but I'm not gonna forget about it either, because it's nice to kind of hop on and just talk, have a conversation and stuff, and see where it goes. And even talking by myself is kind of fun. But what else was I gonna say? Yeah, I don't know. I'll remember to tell you some other things probably on the next one. But I hope that I don't know, you guys didn't get too bored and you got something out of it. And I'll see you guys down in the comments on YouTube, and I'll definitely try to respond more on these, because these are more personal for sure, if it's just me just talking or whatever. So try to really, sometimes I'm bad about not getting around and answering comments because I'm busy or whatever, but that's something I'll try to make a priority on. And I can't answer everybody, of course, but I'll try to make that a priority, to go around and actually answer a lot of the comments on the solo podcast on YouTube. Since it's not live or anything, it's I'm not able to really directly talk to you guys as much in that way. So I'll try to do that more than I do on the other videos. But this will go up on iTunes also. But anyways, I had fun hanging out with you guys, even though you haven't even technically, as I'm saying this, heard this yet, and I can't see you guys, but I know that some of you are listening, and I appreciate you guys, and I enjoy seeing you around on the videos, and it's a lot of fun. I don't deserve it. I don't deserve this life, but I'll take it. And you guys are a lot of fun, and I will talk to you later.